Right. Okay. We'll make a start then. So this is we've done. This is the third of three sessions that we've done this year, just to introduce our parents into, I guess, as it says there, life as a WEC secondary student. Although things are different, there are lots of similarities as well as we move through, and we'll try and explain those similarities and differences. I think the most important thing is that we are a through school, and therefore we know our students really well, and of course we talk to each other as staff, and we know the sorts of excitement and challenges that the transition from year 6 to year 7 brings up. But that's where we're at the moment, and you know, we're moving from one pond to another pond. Whether it's a bigger or a smaller pond, that's up for debate. But it's certainly, you know, there certainly are differences. So there'll be lots of students that are very excited, of course, about that process. I'm sure there's lots of thinking like that at the moment, but there's also going to be, people a little bit like that. What's it going to be like? Not sure. But I think from the time that we start in September, hopefully students will be ready to do it. Although I have to say this time, it's going to be more challenging because of the distance learning that's going on. And I think it's fair to say that there will be far more work around being a secondary student at the beginning of September than there's been before. I know we've talked about that, and Miss Rayner's probably will talk a little bit more about that. But yeah, we want all our young people to be ready and excited and confident that they're going to be successful in our secondary school, as many are and have been over the last few years. So what is it going to be like as a secondary school student? Well, in many ways, you know, it's very much a journey, isn't it? And I suppose, you know, as I've said before in my previous presentations, it's very much a visual learner, and I like to bring sort of pictures to illustrate what I think it will be like, and why is it like whitewater rafting? And if there was more people here, I would ask that question of people, I guess, as we go through. But it brings many challenges. It is certainly a journey from the moment that students come into year 7 all the way through and along to they leave us at the end of year 13. There's a huge amount of challenges and hard work along the way as we work together in that class or in that boat, as we can see there. There'll be plenty of ups and of course and downs along the way, and that's about life, isn't it? And that social interaction we've talked about before is important. We might lose a few students on the way, and for lots of reasons. But also we will do everything we can to get students back again with us. Whether we lose students in terms of their progress, we'll get them back online and back in there on the boat, if you like, because that's what our staff do, and work really hard with that. There'll be times for rest and reflection, of course. There'll be reports and assessments throughout the way to keep you abreast of all the progress that students make. And as students make progress, of course, we'll be of course celebrating that success. And one of the highlights of last year was our first amazing rewards evening at the end of the year, and we'll be doing this again this year, obviously virtually online, but we're doing it again to celebrate all the work, because really our motto in all our classes is that we want students to be the crew of the boat, not the passenger. In other words, they are working not as hard as the teacher, but harder than the teacher. Okay, because they are actively in their learning, whether that's in face-to-face or whether that's at home working from distance, and that's an important part of the time. So yes, you will have an exciting time in secondary school, but you'll also be held all the way from the top, if you like, or whichever way around to the bottom. But yeah, please be aware that as students move through secondary school, things become more serious, I think, more business-like, and students have got to at some point fly solo. And what I'm talking about here is their exams. They get to a point where they go into that exam hall and they feel confident enough, having gone through the process many times, to be successful in the exams, because that's ultimately what we're preparing students for. Exams, life, I get that, life and employment and everything, but also those exams so that they can be successful. And of course, exams open doors to other things. You'll see a lot of this. I mean, you've seen this, Amira, obviously throughout the process. At primary school, it comes as no surprise that we will carry that on. And one of the key things, the petals around the outside are important to us, particularly the risk takers at the top there. But the important bit to us really is the bit in the middle about students being respectful, resilient, and that's key. Persevere when things get tough, and also we want students to be responsible. We are in a time, aren't we, globally at the moment, where there's a huge amount of responsibility that we all have to play, and understanding why we need to be responsible is a key part of what we do. So what are the similarities and differences? Well, let's start with the similarities first. If I may. Well, we certainly believe in the same things. We are an inclusive school. We want everybody to achieve. We don't believe in talent or ability. We believe that with the right teaching and opportunities and students showing the right level of motivation, that students can achieve in anything they want to achieve in. And of course, we offer those opportunities. And we have that expert and specialist teaching in secondary school. It's the child then and the parents supporting that can really help our children flourish. So all of those you'll see before, high expectations, all the way through to the sorts of thing you've seen before. One of the things that I think is very important that continues is the extensive participation in extracurricular activities to really blend with the normal curriculum day. That's important. And it's important that we celebrate all those things, as you can see through there. We still have a house system. We have year leaders and so on and so forth, and heads of key stage. Ms. Rain will talk about a little bit in a moment. But yeah, in essence, there's lots of similarities there. What are the differences? Well, I think the key thing is, as we said before, and something for you to consider is that students in year 6 will be very comfortable and very used to one teacher, and that one teacher will know that child really, really well. I'll be very surprised if they don't. The ins and outs, how they're learning, how they're performing on a day-to-day basis. They spend a lot of time with them. I mean, they will have specialist PE, Arabic teachers, for example, music in some respects, but in the main, they're class teacher. And that's very different now in secondary school. You can have as many as 15 different subjects to as many as 15 different members of staff, all obviously highly specialist in their own areas, but of course will bring differences to the classroom, and students will need to get used to that, and staff will know students really well, but not clearly as well as one teacher would, particularly in the first term, and that's where our teachers will do everything we can to nurture those relationships. But don't be surprised if you don't get the same level, I guess, of interaction with your teachers next year as you would do with your class teacher, because you've got to dilute that by 15 times. So it'd be almost impossible to get the same level of interaction. It's a different level of interaction. It's still a close relationship, but it's different. And I think Ms. Rain will talk a little bit more about that as we go through. Now, the timetable is six lessons a day, 60 minutes. So students have got to be super organised in terms of their planning. They will have a bag, their planner, and all their equipment, and they've got to get from lesson to lesson at the right time with the right equipment, with the right homework, and all those sorts of things. So they have to grow up quite quickly in order to do that. Ms. Rain will talk about the form tutor, but they will have not a class teacher, but a form tutor that will see them every morning for 10 minutes or so before they go into period 1. And that's the only time the form tutor will see them, other than on a Thursday, where they have an end of sort of week period where there'll be an assembly, an opportunity to reflect on the week, look at house points, look at the behaviour, attendance, and messages, and all those sorts of things that have occurred during the week, and then success stories, of course, there. Mr. Morris will bring this up later, but we do have quite a difference in terms of the way we assess students. In primary school generally, assessments are ongoing, more formative, more classroom-based, and where students will kind of put together and build evidence towards assessment as they go through the year. Whereas in secondary school, it's more exam-based, more what can you apply, know, understand, and get across within a period of time, which is very indicative of course, GCSE and A-level exams further up the school. We have three key assessments throughout the year, with the main key assessment being at the end of the year. Of course, that will be slightly different this year with the current situation we're in. However, there will still be many assessments going on. Assessment isn't a dirty word by any means. Assessment is an important part of our school day. It means that we can build in opportunities to go back over work if we need to, and also to change the way that we teach. Something else that's very specific to our school is Horizons Week, although how Horizons Week will work next year with the current situation we'll obviously watch this space on, but this is where we have a chance to get out of the normal school week and explore lots of places in the world, locally, nationally and internationally, to really bring that WEC learner profiler to life. So what will we study? What will your child study? A range of different subjects. Every student will study the same subjects in year 7, unless you are a Muslim, will study Islamic. Now we add them, and if you're not, you'll study either French or Spanish, depending on which way around we'll do that. At the moment it's French, but we may change that to Spanish. There are 29 lessons in the week, 60-minute lessons in the week, so 29 hours, if you like, of face-to-face study time. And of course, we do expect students to work extensively outside of that as well. And we're talking about homework and flipped learning. And as the years go on, homework and independent study become far more important and prevalent in the working week. So go on from there, Mr. Morris. So we clicked through some of these already, haven't we? So right. So in terms of pastoral care and everything else that goes along with the school, pastoral care in terms of assessment, reporting, exam performance, and a little bit of information around the arrangements, if you like, for September, I will pass on to Miss Rayner now and Mr. Morris. Okay, thank you.
For those of you that don't know me, I'm Mrs. Rayner, head of Key Stage 3. You will most likely see me in a PE kit, as I also work down in the PE department. And luckily, I get to teach a range of students from primary to secondary. So I will already know your students or your children really, really well, which is great within my current role. So our priorities, as I've just listed there, will be exactly the same as the priorities that you will have as parents. It's important that the students are safe, secure, happy, supported, and all this goes hand in hand with their academic and personal achievement. So who is responsible for the pastoral care? Well, you've got me that oversees the key stage. Key stage 3 involves year 7, year 8 and year 9. So we'll be looking at attendance, behaviour, progress and just students' general well-being. Then you've also got the Form Tutor, which I'll explain a little bit more about in a moment. But obviously the whole school community is involved in the pastoral care of our students. So if you have any concerns, if it's subject specific, then we direct you straight to that specialist. If it's more of a generic concern, it will firstly go to the Form Tutor, and then if it's a little bit more serious, it will come directly to me. Key staff at the moment, we've got Mr. Ray, who's in charge of pastoral across the whole of secondary and sixth form. We've got myself as head of Key Stage 3, and then currently I have 10 Form Tutors in my team. So the Form Tutor is the person that your child will see every single day. It will probably be the most consistent member of staff that your child sees. And it's really important from the off that they build that kind of rapport with the student. It's that person that they can go to if they're worried about anything, if they've got any questions. It's also the role of the Form Tutor just to ensure that they're prepared for the day. So we have quite a strict routine in the mornings. So students will go into form time. It might change slightly next year with the timetable, but currently at 7:45, before the national anthem goes off, your child will be expected to be in form. Register is taken, and then we'll do like equipment checks, make sure that they've got key notices. Miss Morris, can you just pop to the next slide for me?
Oh, yeah.
This is just an example of key information. So I update this regularly. So each morning when the students go into form, this will be on the slide on the board, and they'll be able to, it's quite busy at the moment because there's a lot going on, but they'll just be able to pick out key information, note it down in their planner so they're ready for the week and they're fully informed. You can go back, please, sir. Thank you. So yeah, it's your first port of call as parents, but also the students' first port of call. As I said, they'll be taking register, monitoring attendance. Any concerns will then come to me. Most importantly, it's about celebrating achievements, monitoring behaviour and the well-being, and just really promoting the expectations. We expect students to be on time, and they are penalised, if you like. They receive consequences if they are late, because that responsibility of getting into school and being informed is really, really important. We don't want them to be unprepared for the rest of the day. Any information will be shared via D6, just like they do in primary school, but we don't have the Padlet. And I think that's something that primary parents seem to struggle with at first, is that we don't have that Padlet where all the key information, but everything is uploaded on D6. If it's more personal, it'll come via email or via a phone call. What else have we got on there? Oh, form groups. This is a question that I get asked all the time because students are really excited to see which form they're in and what form tutor they will be allocated to. Unfortunately, we aren't able to make those groups before the summer for obvious reasons, lots of transition, living in Dubai. So they will be shared as soon as possible, just before the students come back in September. I think that's me done. Has anyone got any questions about the role of the form tutor or pastoral care or anything like that? You can unmute if you want, or you can type it into the chat. No? Awesome. Mr. Morris, I think I'm over to you.
Yeah. Yes, if you do have any questions, just write them in the chat for everyone to see, and we can respond. I will say, you know, Jenny's absolutely fantastic, and you do so much fantastic work with the kids. So thank you. And I know you're really excited about next year. Just really quickly about Horizons Week. Doug touched upon it earlier. It's a week that we currently have in February, which is a week where students are off timetable. They don't have their normal curriculum timetable, but we put on lots of different activities, whether that's in school or within the UAE, or it's really where we do our international trips. We want students to have the opportunity to do international trips, but we introduced Horizons Week because instead of them being scattered around the year, throughout the academic year at different times, we want them at one time and in a way that they're not missing lessons. As Doug alluded to, how that looks next year, we don't know, of course. Some of our trips were disrupted a little bit this year because of COVID-19. So we need to think long and hard and really take the information that we get from the government and GEMS and the KHDA. But we will update you on that come next year when we know a little bit more about how Horizons Week is going to look. So I'm going to talk to you about our exam results and assessment. Our GCSEs, which take place in Key Stage 4, which is at the end of year 11, when students are 15 or 16-year-old, they are the end of compulsory education. And it's those GCSE qualifications which students will then use as a stepping stone to either go on to study A-levels at sixth form, or it could be IB or whatever other curriculum, to go to college, to start work. And really the GCSEs are the bread and butter of British education, and they are renowned qualifications throughout the world. I've got GCSEs, Jenny's got GCSEs, and they are the bog standard qualification really. But everything that we do with students, even when they start in year 7, is about trying to, the best of our ability, prepare them for their year 11s, for their GCSEs in year 11. In our GCSEs, they are graded from 9 to 1. You are probably familiar with the old A star to G sort of grading, but for the last 2 years, they have been 9 to 1 qualifications, a 9 being the highest and a 1 being the lowest pass. GCSE content's really, really challenging, and students could be doing anything as little as 9 GCSEs up to 11 or 12. Depending on a variety of different factors. But several years ago, they were reformed. When I was doing GCSEs, and I'm sure the same as Jenny, coursework was a much bigger part. So you could be working on coursework and projects, and then a smaller percentage would be assessed as an end-of-year exam. A few years ago, and I don't necessarily completely agree with it, but that's what happened. The Department for Education changed it so that most subjects now finish with 1 or 2 exams. So you would study for 2 years, and that entire qualification is based on 2 exams at the end of year 11. It's not the case in every subject. I know in PE, in Jenny's subject, in my subject, in music, there is coursework, and they get moderated and in a variety of different ways. But that exam is there's much more emphasis on that exam. So we have to prepare students for that, because it's a lot of retention of information. I think one way in which the primary school assess is if they can evidence it at that moment in time, then that'll be ticked off, and they're securing. Well, they might not come back to that for another year or several weeks. With us, we've got to constantly reflect. So, and Doug touched on it earlier, we have our key assessments. And in our key assessments, Key Assessment 1 happens in October, November time. They take a snapshot of where students are and assess the content that's been taught and the skills that have been taught from January through to that assessment. But then our Key Assessment 2 in February also has to assess on what's been taught from October to February, but also the things that have come before that and in the previous year, to ensure that knowledge is retained. So that is really what's behind our assessment model. In year 7, 8 and 9, we still use the mastery curriculum definition. So a securing is expected attainment, and a securing plus is above. We've got this sort of diagram here on the right-hand side. This shows that how the 9 to 1 converts to the old A star to G. People often think anything lower than a C or a 4 is a fail. It is not. Anything from a 1 or above, or as you might be more familiar with, a G and above, is a pass. It's just that the 4 and the C is the awarding, it's the standard pass. And then in the UK, a good pass is a 5 and above. Here in Dubai, the KHA changed their benchmarks, and their benchmarks for a standard pass is a 4, and their above expected attainment is a mastering. There we go. I've just said that. So a grade 5 is considered by the UK as a strong pass. For us in Dubai, that's a grade 6. Okay, typically around the world, only 50% of students get a grade 6. At WEC last year, 83% of our students got a grade 6. A grade 4 is that standard pass. It's the one that, most jobs these days require students to have 5 GCSEs of a grade 4 and above. And approximately 65% of students get that grade 4. This was 94% at WEC last year. The grade 7 is equivalent to an old A grade. We were 47% at WEC last year. And then the grade 9 is the highest grade. It's higher than an A star, typically reserved for the top 2, and in some subjects, the top 4% of the cohort, and 12% of our grades last year were a grade 9. You can see 909% there. That should be 94%. I'm not sure why 909%, but you can just have a read of that. Value added is really important to us. So we use CAT 4. The UK uses CAT 4. Dubai, the UAE, uses CAT 4. And you'll be familiar with the term, but probably in the primary school, you're most familiar with CAT 4 as a tool for identifying whether your child is a verbal or spatial learner and how they learn best. Cat 4 also gives indications to what a child is likely to achieve in their GCSEs. It uses a sample size of about 300 students every year to see what their CAT scores were, what they got in their GCSEs, and to make a trend. And we share that information with parents, so you can see what Cat 4 indicates your child is likely to get in their GCSEs. And we use then the term value added to add value to that grade. So if a child is, Cat 4 says, is expected to get 4, and we get them a 6, that means they've got a value added of 2. And that's really about progress. And that's what we care about actually very, very much here at work. And you'll see from this table here, we're so proud of this, but last year across the GEMS British schools, we had the highest value added. It was almost 2. So for as an average across the school and across our students, students did on average 2 grades better than what their Cat 4 did. And that really is down to the hard work of the students, the hard work and the high quality of teaching, as well as the engagement from parents and being really, really, really involved. So we're really passionate about that. We have Go for Schools as well. And this has completely transformed how we do things in the secondary school, and I love it. I'm a huge advocate for it. This presentation is a little bit out of date because the app is actually there. But from September, you will have access to Go for Schools. You will have your own login. Your child will have their own login. I know you're probably thinking, oh my God, another thing. You've got all these different platforms. Go for Schools is really our one and main area for people to go. We don't use lots of different things. We're really focused on Go for Schools. And in Go for Schools, you'll be able to see your child's form information, their timetable. You'll be able to see what their attendance is like on the system. You'll be able to see what house points they're getting, what negative or behavior points we call them. You'll be able to see, as you can see from this image here, how they're currently performing in every subject. And what's most important, and you'll see here, oh gosh, I've gone too far ahead. In French here, you can see the child is currently at a 4+. But you can see that in speaking, reading and writing, it's a 4, and listening is a 2+. So we've got that breakdown of where the intervention and the work needs to go. Go for Schools is fantastic, and we're so ahead of the game. There's only 2 schools currently in Dubai that use Go for Schools, and now loads of schools are coming to us to say, please help us do it, because obviously with everything that's going on with COVID-19 and remote learning, Go for Schools is amazing because we don't have to worry about where the evidence is coming from. Is this yours, Jenny?
Yeah, I can talk through that. Obviously, it's very different with the current situation, but just be rest assured that I'm working very closely with the Year 6 team, in particular Miss Rowlings, to make sure that students are fully prepared and they're getting excited about moving up to secondary. We've got a couple of things on the calendar so far. So, for example, we've got an assembly this Thursday, tomorrow actually, where we'll introduce the tasted and how that's going to look, and then through teams there'll be various just thinking about prepared in secondary and things that they'll need to know. So for example, after our assembly tomorrow, there'll be a little quiz that will go live, and they'll have a couple of days to complete that, and then there'll be awards for top house points, etc. We've got the taste day cool. So even though it is remote, they'll be attending core subjects and a couple of other online with the secondary specialists. Obviously, our main priority for this is that students understand the expectations, but more importantly, that they just have a little bit of fun and maybe learn something different that they wouldn't have the accessibility to as a primary student. We're liaising with the bridge, so to make sure that our students who have specific needs are catered for, and hopefully there'll be a time in September, all being well, where we can invite those parents and students into school a little bit earlier, just to give a bit of a description about what secondary would look like. Obviously, normally we would do that now, but we can't. Also, through the Year 6 teams, I'm going to assign some Year 7 buddies, so that's just the person that the students can go to if they've got any questions. We've also got 2 QR codes that should have been shared with you. The students have got this on their teams, and the parent one has gone out via E6, and I believe also the parent Padlet. So if you do have any questions following this presentation, please just put it on there. I kind of look at it every couple of days, and we'll just update it. Have a little scan through, make sure you're not repeating any questions, but there's lots of information on there for parents and students. I think that is it. I think the main thing is that we just get the students really excited. They feel a little bit secure in knowing what the expectations are come September, and just that we're there for them. We've not forgotten about them. So I will be in regular contact with the Year 6s over the next few months. And I think that's it.
Yeah. Often I find with transition, it's the parents that are much more anxious than the kids. You know, just trust that, you know, through, even before we went into remote learning and through Teams and other things, we really know how to do this well. And, you know, just rest assured that everything will be fine. And I know they're going up to big school, so to speak, but it really isn't that big a change. And it doesn't feel as much of a change because we make it so seamless. So if you do have any questions, please don't hesitate to either write it in the group chat on Zoom or unmute yourself, and you're welcome to ask. We will be here for about another 5 minutes if anybody does have any questions.
Thank you so much for coming online.
Okay, no problem. There's a question about Go for School, sure. You're welcome to unmute, or you can type it there.
Let's hear some voices. It's quite nice to have a bit of company.
Very, very regularly indeed. I can actually, yeah, I'm just wondering if I can share, if Doug would mind me sharing maybe his own child.
Yeah, that'd be fine.
Just give me 1 second. Let me stop this presentation. I'm guessing that's gone now.
Through Go for Schools also, you can get email notifications, not necessarily about the progress, but if your child receives a house point, for example, you can get email notifications, and likewise for negative behaviour points as well. So before you've even seen them at the end of the day, you can already kind of get a picture of how their day has gone, whether they've got any late marks, if they've got some house points in certain subjects, etc. So it is brilliant.
So I'm just loading up one student's. How do I do this? Okay, I'm hopefully this will work. He's not going to tell me off. I will. What I'll do is just let me see if I can open the chat in case someone. See, I'm not really that familiar with Zoom.
I'll open the chat.
Yeah. So I'm guessing you can see that.
Yeah.
So this is Doug's son. I know he won't mind. This is what a Go for Schools page looks like for the parents and the students. There's a student view and parent view, but this is what it looks like really for us as teachers as well. You can see information. I won't share that because it's more private, but he's got 95% attendance. He's got 315 positive behaviour points. I can see Miss Murphy's his form tutor. He hasn't got any negative behaviour points, which is great. You can see the timetable. You can also view the full timetable. We have a 2-week timetable in secondary to make sure we can fit all the lessons in. All homework goes on Go for Schools as well. So teachers submit the homework. You will be able to access Go for Schools for either on the website or through an app, and so therefore everything's in one place, and you'll be able to see all the homework, and if I was to click into this, the activity, if there's a worksheet, it'll be there, and that's there. Hi, Miss Kapoor. This is just for secondary, yeah, at the moment, Go for Schools. I know that the primary school use something different called O-Track, but that doesn't allow people to log into it. But Go for Schools is open. Then down here, we have our sort of detailed progress report, okay? And to answer your first question about how often is it updated, we update it all the time, okay? So whilst you might be familiar with a model of having 3 or 4 data captures throughout the year, and unless you go to a parents' evening or unless you get your report, you don't know where the child is. That's not the case for us, okay? So parents often find when they're looking at Go for Schools, the grades are up and down and changing all the time, because as new information, as new assessment is going in, the grades are changing, okay? This current grade here, teachers cannot influence, okay? And that's brilliant, because what it means is teachers can't be, thinking too hard about where that child is. It has to be based on evidence. And that just means that the grades where kids are currently at are really accurate. And it's based on evidence. And I can, for example, click into, I don't know, if I go into chemistry, where he's currently below expected progress, I can see the different assessments that are contributing to this. And you can see this as parents as well. We weren't able to do Key Assessment 2 because of the COVID-19 and the closure of schools. But you can see here all the different assessments that he's done in class, or more formal assessments. And these happen, or these are homework here. This is homework, but classwork down here. So everything that you've got there is contributing to that current grade. But yeah, as I said, it's live, it's real time, it's ongoing. It's not, what we don't say to staff is, okay, by the 29th of October, you need to have put in a grade. It doesn't work like that. When they do it, it could be a spelling test, put it in Go for Schools, okay? It's ongoing and it's routine all the time. So as well as this data, you can see the breakdown of attendance. You can see behavior, both positive and negative. So on Sunday, Miss Kennedy gave Charlie a house point for being a really independent inquirer. Any negative behavior points get logged there as well. You can actually put in notifications on your Go for Schools to email you when a teacher puts in a behavior point, okay? Now, we don't always advise it. What we say to parents really is we'd rather if you set it to notify you at the end of the week, because if let's say your child has got a negative house point, you need to give us the time as a school to address that, and because every time someone gets a negative house point on Go for School as a behavior point, it gets referred then to someone else in the school to follow that up. What we don't want is so-and-so was cheeky to a teacher, they've got a negative log, and the parents are in the school even before we know about it, okay? So that's just some of the rationale behind that. You can see attainment and progress over time. This, it's just a brilliant place for all the information that we have, and that's accessible for you.
Can I just say about behaviour intervention, please, sir?
Of course.
Just in terms of behaviour points and house points, obviously there's consequences and rewards. So in terms of behaviour points, currently if a student has 3 behaviour points, that will then flag to a one-to-one meeting with the Form Tutor. There's obviously different stages of intervention. We don't want to be jumping straight into parents after 1 or 2 behaviour points, but obviously you'll have an overview for your Go for Schools. When it gets to 5 behaviour points, you should expect an email home, just by outlaying our concerns and a bit of more detail about why the behaviour points are occurring. And then once it gets to 8 behaviour points, it comes up to me. And depending on why the behaviour points are given, then it might be a chance for students to go into report so we can monitor more closely, or a parent meeting. So there are different levels of intervention. Most importantly, it's about rewarding students for their achievements. So each half term or term, there will be a reward trip or a reward day in school. So if the students reach, for example, 75 house points within that half term, they will be invited then onto the reward day. If they didn't quite meet it for whatever reason, obviously look at that on an individual basis as well. But if they didn't meet it and they're not going on the reward day, then it's just a normal day of learning. So they're not punished as such, but they're also not rewarded.
Thank you, Jenny. Any more questions, guys, before we close up? No problem at all to both of you. Thank you. Okay, well, we will call this meeting a day. I'll stop the recording shortly. Thank you for attending. If you do end up having any other questions, just give me or Miss Rainer, I'm sure she won't mind, an email, and we can follow that up. Not a problem. Okay, well, thank you everyone. No problem at all. Have a good day. Take care of yourselves. Stay well and safe, and wash your hands and wear the masks. Honestly, I'm constantly scolding people outside my window when they walk past without a mask. I just get so frustrated. Thank you, Amira. Thank you, yes, to everyone. Please stay safe and well. And pass on our love to your kids as well. We're really missing everyone. We really are. You know, there's a lot of love at work, and I know you know that. So yeah. Okay, have a nice day. Bye-bye, everyone. Thank you, Miss Rainer.
Bye.